response video to dospook. Yeah. Yeah, do it again. But whatever. It's a kind of a frustrating conversation to try to have, just because, you know, he's already conceded he has this personal experience with the unnatural, the supernatural, and you know, he has a theology of sorts, and so it just seems like we're not going to be able to have this conversation. So anyway, I've only got through a third of his video, and I'm tired, so I just figured I'll respond to the third that's there. So he started off with just some, you know, backstory, little bit of I know somebody that he knows and is concerned, and blah blah blah, and yeah, who wants to go into all the details? But the point is that I haven't been good for dospook. Okay, it's probably a truth. Okay, he'd probably be better off if I never would have been. Yeah, he probably would have. It's just the truth. Acknowledged. You know, you can't. It's impossible to live without inadvertent consequences and all that kind of crap. So obviously, it just makes things complicated, and that's all. So, and you know, we're obviously also there's people, a lot of people, you know, the substance of people in these conversations, the people who take life seriously, or at least interested in the subject of existence, are usually people who are going to have a little bit of trouble, a little bit of torment in their minds. They're not going to be the typical average asshole human who just keeps chasing their little dollar bills and their coins and their pussy and whatever, you know, and just can't think any further than that. It's not very it's not psychologically healthy to ask too many questions. I think it can be stated. Even if you believe in something other than biological evidence, I mean, you know, the biological story of life, and think there's something else going on. The fact is, it's still so ambiguous. Even your supernatural world is so undefined and you know, where's the beef kind of thing, that it's going to leave you with too many questions, too many unanswered questions, and that's dissidence. It causes psychological dissidence and vulnerability and all kinds of things. Anyway, that's a whole side story. Getting to it. So anyway, the first third of this video is basically just a reprise of previously made arguments that I find totally meaningless. I'm sorry. This idea of trying to make the life story into something, well, go ahead. I mean, yeah, you want to say there's possibilities, there's ways of reconfiguring the pieces to make it look like something else, well, go ahead. But I'm saying that you're not obeying any kind of logical rules. So, you know, you want to paint smiley faces on vials of syphilis? Yeah, I can't stop you, but I'm saying it's probably not advisable. It's not sensible. It's not reasonable. It's not right. It's wrong. It's a wrong way to identify the reality. The reality is the consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, addiction. The reality is we're caught up in the replication mechanism, and that it is a crude and brutal mechanism that just has to do with stealing energy from each other, so we can climb a little mountain that says we win for a day, fart out a few offspring, and drop dead. And it's just this processing. We're just being processed by a machine that doesn't function for any reason but to maintain the machine. It's replication for the sake of replication. That's the interest served, and it's serving it to serve the interest of replicating. There's no other function. It's just a cycle. It's just a thing, a monster, by my definition. It's unintelligent design. That's a premise. You think you have defeated the premise. You've unraveled the premise. I don't think you've done anything. You haven't made any kind of argument that has any sensible meaning to me. To say that people aren't imposing, okay, because they put all the ingredients for the cake in the bowl, and somehow it's just a surprise that it turns into a cake. No, they know what they're trying to do. They're trying to make cake. Arguing about every ingredient and saying every ingredient isn't cake. Well, duh. But we know what the intent is. And so to say fetuses aren't cake, and to say kids aren't cake, and this ain't cake, and that ain't, we know what it is. They know what it's going to be. It's every bit an imposition. It is more of a known than lots of things you can go out and do where you could argue that you're not going to know the result, but you're going to know the result of having kids is creating a people. That's what it does. People are the product of having kids. You create human life, and that human life is going to have an experience, and we statistically know what the experience possibilities are, the realm of possibility. And some of those possibilities are just grotesquely awful, and that's the risk you take, and you're imposing the risk on somebody else. You are pulling the straw for them. These analogies are all applicable. Grow up and take responsibility for that. Argue why you have a right to do that. Don't tell me that's not what you're doing. This is bullshit. Sorry. It's idiotic from my perspective. I can give it no quarter. I can give it no anything. It just is a nonsensical argument to me to say that a 21st century man does not know what the consequences of sex without protection against that likelihood. And clearly most of the anti-natalist argument is towards people not having accidents, but people doing it quite on purpose. And their purpose is, quite obviously, to have something they want, and through the process of having what they want, something to play with, something to have their name, some other kind of bullshit, they're creating a human being. They're creating it. And you can't get more imposing than to create. Shit. It's just not. Sorry. I mean, I don't even know how to say it, but I mean, this is just such fundamental logic. I mean, how can I take seriously people who are saying it's not their fault? They didn't mean it. It's an accident. Nature did it. When they have the actual thoughts in their head, and the difference can be they can have other thoughts in their head just as easily. And yeah, bullshit. So anyway, enough of that. Alright, then his other argument is this idea that I'm taking suffering too seriously because people like him enjoy suffering, or they don't really care, or it's no big deal. And fine. I'll argue for the fact that human beings can be vegetarian really easy, no big deal, and that they can not need to live very easily, no big deal. So I think it'd be so much easier just to make people like me, who don't need to eat meat and don't need to live, and certainly don't need to procreate, than to make people like you, who are spiritual and apparently impervious to anything called suffering that matters. You just have suffering that's whatever, blah blah blah. Oh, whatever. It wasn't negative, wasn't positive. It was just kind of, alright, maybe it was a waste of time, but that's all it was. It was just a little bit of time wasted. I could have been doing something other better than, throwing up through my eyeballs. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, fine. If that's your argument, if you think that's the way biology really works, if you think that's what's happening in nature, then all the animals are just going, oh, suffering, oh, who cares? No big deal. Oh, something just ate my leg off? Oh, my entrails are dragging behind me? Oh, yeah, no big deal. Who cares? I'm sorry, I can't have this conversation either. It's It's nonsensical. So you have superhuman power, you have super biological powers, super beyond all other mammal sentient organism powers. And so yes, you could be in an earthquake and gnaw your own leg off and it's no big deal. Okay, fine. You in Zombie Picture Show, you are the new Ubermont. You are the superhumans that, just don't care. Okay, fine. I don't think you're representative of what most people procreating are going to produce. So yeah, if you want to argue that it's okay for people to have babies who are impervious to suffering, fine, great, go ahead and have those then. But I don't even buy your argument anyway. I don't think you end up where you've ended up in your life if you don't know what suffering is. So I think it's all a big pile of shit. And if you don't know that suffering is bad, but whatever, fine. I mean, I think you've got to be a pretty miserable person to make yourself as miserable as you are. Right? I mean, so, you got to be, you got to be in an awful lot of pain if you're going to create more pain to distract you from the pain kind of argument, I don't think this argument from sadomasochism wins. I think that's an argument of a failure, not a victory. If I had my choice, I'm not going to have a sadomasochistic kid because I know the reason why he's masochating himself is because he's not because he's impervious to pain, it's because it's the only way he knows how to feel. And that's not good. Anyway. So yeah, that's not going to be a meaningful argument. I can't do anything with that. So he makes the argument that I'm just talking dogma, which is whatever. I mean, I don't have any use for these redefining of concepts either. Traditionally, the word dogma is reserved for some argument made from no authority, no evidence. I mean, just a declaration of a truth that has no reason-based or logic-based or evidence-based explanation. And it's just established as this is the rule or the truth of the statement, and it needs no other justification. I'm all about justification. I demand it from others, and I provide it for my dogma. My dogma is thoroughly evidenced and argued through that evidence. Yeah, I don't go through every little biological fact of evolution because, yeah, that's already in the books, and it's all rock solid. That's where we came from, and you want to call that dogma, that's your prerogative again, but I think it's bullshit. Am I supposed to take that seriously as a strong argument? He's called my philosophy dogma, or my statements of my premises dogma, when they're clearly evidence-based and clearly logically, the logical implications of unintelligent design, okay, is bad design. That's not dogma, it's a reasoned argument. Shit. So hell with that. And what are we at the end here? Suicide, not the answer to better never to have been. So again, he's arguing, goes into some conversation about stigmas against suicide and all this other stuff. Even if you had a liberal right to commit suicide, it still isn't an answer to the better never to have been argument. Because just recognize that to kill yourself, you have to endure enough pain to want to be dead. I mean, you have to be in enough pain to want to be dead. You have to feel vulnerable to enough horror to want to be dead. So you have to endure either the physical harm or the threat of the physical harm as something you endure, mentally contemplate, mentally experience before you can even choose to commit suicide. So how is it a solution? It's a saying, okay, yeah, we can reduce the amount of failure through suicide, but you're not solving the problem at all. And again, unless you're going to start giving 6-year-olds the right to say, my parents are basically assholes and imbeciles, and I can understand that this game isn't winnable, and I'd like to just get out of here before I make a total mess out of it. Are you going to do that? Or do you support that? Probably not. So you'd at least force 18 years of indoctrination and extensive incarceration in the institution of imbecility learning. So, you know, what? How's that an answer? How's that? It's nothing. It really is not. It's offering nothing as a solution to the better never to have been problem. And the fact that you are choosing for someone else to say, I will tell you what your suffering is worth. I will tell you what your discontent is worth. I will tell you what your revulsion is worth. I will tell you that humans are worth it, that we are grand and noble beasts, and that you will pay for our existence. You will pay so we can walk around and say how charming we are and how cool we are because we want to, whatever, play with children for 18 years. And then pretty much abandon them and just, you know, say go make your way in the world because I don't have any money. I borrowed it all on the credit card, and you know, yeah, I'll leave you the national debt. You go pay my debts. Again, the people have shown how much love they have for the future, which is zero, because they compromise the fuck out of it. And you're gonna have an argument with me about some sort of noble purpose that you have a right to impose suffering on some percentage of the human race to accomplish. And like again, we haven't even gotten to the suffering imposed on the other mammals on this planet who have active and intense conscious experience, and you were just saying fuck you to all of them. And I'm saying that's bullshit. It's preposterous bullshit. So we're basically to some sort of argument that somebody made this in the video, deterministic one, since you referenced this video. He responded to, and he made the Star Trek argument about there's a point where Kirk says, I need my pain. And I don't think Kirk meant that as, oh yeah, I need, like, give me chemotherapy and let me, you know, suffer for 6 months or a year and a half or 2 years or whatever. Like I need that. No, I mean that's just bullshit. And the whole story was kind of bullshit. I mean, realistically, it's almost like the Anti-Natalists controlling guilt syndrome or some other kind of nonsense, that all our pain is some sort of emotional pain, and that there's no other kind. Bullshit. Mega bullshit. So yeah, so there's different experiences of pain, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that you don't suffer and that you don't feel this and you don't feel that, or you do feel this or you don't feel, I don't know, who the hell cares? I'm talking in some sort of generic sense, okay? I've heard people screaming in hospitals. I've heard them with my own ears. I've seen animals suffer, and I've seen them express all the visual signals of intense distress. I have personally experienced suffering, and I didn't like it. It was bad. I would not do it again for all the money in the world. Well, I can't say that, okay, because all the money in the world, obviously I could get anti-natalism passed with no problem. With all the money in the world, I can buy a lot of propaganda with that, so I guess I would endure it for all the money in the world. But yeah, I mean, obviously we experience suffering differently. I wouldn't pay for it. I mean, I wouldn't. There's not something I can say, oh yeah, there's something about life that's so magnificent that I would accept that again to have it. especially in the context of knowledge of how life works. You know, I mean, as you're a kid, you kind of grow up and you figure this shit out. You figure out that, yeah, I know this Christmas thing seems like a good idea, but yeah, there's that, you know, a week after Christmas just kind of sucks. So it doesn't work somehow. Somehow getting what I want doesn't work. And in life it happens that way. You find a perfect this or a perfect that, and it just won't stay perfect. It will rot on the vine, kind of thing. The fruit gets ripe and then it gets past ripe. And that's what life does to us. It always takes us to the you know, promised land, the paradise, the whatever, and you know, then the hurricane hits or the tsunami or whatever. But yeah, it will slip through your fingers, and there's something grotesquely insidious about that. And in hindsight, I wouldn't suffer, you know, I wouldn't suffer that to be duped and gamed like that. So fuck it. I'm saying I don't appreciate the imposition. I don't appreciate somebody else thinking I would be stupid enough to think this is a good idea. Especially the human race has created. A bunch of lying, phony, fake, everybody's in their facade suit, everybody's wearing their colors, their caps with their little logos, their team, their nation, their race. This is a shithole of a world. Even in a good world, I don't see a function to this nonsense. But in this world, you assholes are going to defend telling me I should endure it. Intelligence should be thrown back here again to have to look at this slop, to puke and then say what? Thank you very much? Fuck you, is what I'm saying to you. Leave me the fuck alone. Until you can control the experiment, until it's your own dick you're taking hacks at, leave me the fuck out of it. And by me, I mean my kind. Those who will not find it charming, are useful, are justifiable, will not find the suffering, who cares? Yeah, no, none of that's going to happen. Yeah. Yeah. Just, you know, like I said, your arrogance in the face of nothing to defend. There's just, you have nothing here to defend. Humanity has shown no grace or dignity or value or character as a whole at all. So why are you defending it? And at this price, you're going to keep torturing things to maintain your delusions of grandeur. I think it's pitiful. So anyway, nice talking. We should do Skype sometime maybe or something. But yeah, I just don't, it's always going to come down to the fact that I think you'd get this if you didn't have this whatever it is sitting out there, this vision out the window, where you see some possibility that it all makes sense out somehow. Like somehow it's going somewhere. Like there's some singularity tracks right outside, and we just have to go out the back door, and there's singularity tracks there. And if you understood that, no, there's just a desert. That's a mirage. It doesn't exist. It's just a replicating molecule, and we're just being duped into being ground up, and then ground up again, and then ground up again, for nothing.